I will record your speech, please.
Thank you very much, Jampa, and good morning from Paris, everyone. I think some of them are in the evening, and yeah, we have a different time zones. And thank you for the opportunity to speak at the International Queer Buddhist Conference. I'm honored to share my thought on an important topic: how we can understand transgender and pandaka identities in Buddhism, and how Metta, a universal love and kindness, guide us to embrace all beings, regardless of the gender or sexual identity. So, in early Buddhist texts, we often come across the term pandaka, which referred to individuals who did not fit neatly into the traditional categories of male or female. The term pandaka encompasses a wide range of identities and behavioral that were considered non-normative in ancient Indian society, including those with diverse sexual orientation and gender expression. Some scholars suggest that pandaka could be understood as referring to a third gender, which may have been related to the gender diverse communities we see today, such as Hijra in India and Nachi community in Sri Lanka. And in ancient China, also we saw Pandaka community. Importantly, in the context of ancient Buddhist monastic life, certain behavior of or identities associated with Pandaka were seen as incompatible with monastic disciplines, particularly the strictly celibacy that monks and nuns were required to follow. However, the restriction was more about ensure the integrity of the monastic vows than about condemning someone's gender identity or sexual orientation. It is essential to recognize this distinction so that we do not misinterpret these ancient rules as a rejection of transgender community or queer individual in a Buddhist practice. So I will bring your attention to the Vinaya Pitaka. I'm going to talk. The Vinaya Pitaka is the collection of texts that lays out the rules of disciplines for the Buddhist monastic community, the Sangha. The rules were established by Buddha himself to ensure the smooth functioning of the monastic community and to support the monks and nuns in their spiritual practice. The Vinaya Pitaka cover a wide range of topics, including conduct, celibacy, interaction with the lay people, and ordination procedures, as we mentioned in the before session. So one of the most interesting aspect of the Vinaya Pitaka is that it contains provision that allows for flexibility in how gender is treated within the monastic community. For instance, there are instances in the Vinaya Pitaka where monks and nuns exhibit signs of transition gender. In such case, the Buddha allowed adjustment to be made, showing that gender change was acknowledged and accommodated with the Sangha. The Buddha decisions around these cases demonstrate his recognition that gender identity can be fluid, that such change do not necessarily disqualify someone from the monastic path. So the text records situation where a monk start displaying characteristic association with women, or where a nun began showing characteristic association with men. In such situation, the Buddha didn't reject these individuals. Instead, he allowed them to shift between the male and female monastic order, depending on how they identify and presented. So this indicates that the Buddha acknowledged gender fluidity and made provision to allow individuals to continue their spiritual practice within the community, regardless of the gender expression. So you can go to the Vinaya Pitaka and you can read the Parajika Pali. I will share the link after my session. So you can see this provision, how Buddha accept change in gender. And this inclusivity is incredibly progressive, especially when we consider the time period in which these texts were written. The Buddha approach suggests that gender was not seen as a or limiting factor in one's ability to follow the path of Dhamma. The Buddha's openness in allowing for gender change within the monastic context is clear sign that he valued the individual's commitment to the spiritual life over a rigid notion of gender. So now I will share some example or role model for me actually. So this is story of Sorya, a queer Buddhist monk, and queer Arahant monk, enlightened monk. So one of the most fascinating story that highlight the Buddha's acceptance of gender diversity is the story of Sorya. So he's a wealthy man who one day, after wishing he could be a woman, was magically transformed into one. So this, when you read Atta Katha, it's like some kind of a supernatural fairy tale, but there is a incident which one of persons the gender change. So Sorya lived as a woman for some time, got married and had children. Later, after an encounter with a monk, Kachayana Thero, so Sorya expressed deep remorse for his past desire and was eventually transformed back into a man. So when you read Atta Katha, it's like little transphobic and womanphobic, but when we're talking about the story, it's about a person, a non-binary or gender fluid person. So what is remarkable about the story is that Sorya went on the become a monk and was fully accepted into the Sangha by Buddha. Sangha by Buddha. That is we have to keep that in our mind. So the story, so that even someone who had experienced a dramatic change in gender and identity was not excluded from the monastic life. The Buddha accepts Sorya as a monk without hesitation, which sent a powerful message about the inclusivity of the Buddha's teaching. So the story of Sorya is a beautiful example of how the Buddha recognized that gender and identity are not fixed, and the spiritual path is open to everyone, regardless of their gender history or identity. And now let's bring our attention one of core principle, core dhamma in the Buddhism. So at the heart of the Buddha's teaching is the concept of anatta, the doctrine of the non-self or no fixed identity. So this teaching is fundamental to understand why gender should not be a barrier to spiritual practice. The Buddha taught that clinging to rigid idea of identity, where they are based on gender, sexuality, or any other concept of self, ideas lead to suffering. So true liberation comes when we let go to these attachment and realize the impermanent, anitya, ever-changing nature of all things, including our own identity. For transgender and gender diverse individuals, this teaching is especially empowering. It reminds us that we are not defined by our physical bodies or societal labels. Our true essence transcends these superficial identities. The path to enlightenment is open to all, regardless to how we identify or express ourselves. Now, let's turn to Metta, the practice of boundless love and kindness. Metta is one of the four Brahma Viharas, sublime attitudes in Buddhism, and teach us to extend conditional kindness to all begin with without exception. In practicing metta, we are called to embrace everyone with kindness and compassion, regardless of their gender identity, sexual orientation, race, or background. So, what Buddha say about metta, and how Buddha asks us to spread metta? Buddha say, "Sabbe satta sukito bhavantu." Sabbe satta sukito bhavantu. That means, may the all living beings be happy. May the all living beings be healed. So that is Buddha's metta. So the Buddha's message of metta is one of inclusion. It is not selective because it's a sabbe satta, all living beings. It does not discriminate. If we truly practice metta, we must extend it to everyone, transgender people, queer individual, and all members of the LGBTQ community. This love and kindness go beyond all boundaries and labels. So, same time, if you are Buddhist, if you want to be a homophobic, it's not possible because that is against the Buddha's teaching. If you are Buddhist, same time you want to be a transphobic person, that is not possible. If you want to be a racist person, that is not possible because Buddha's message, teaching is different. It's about metta, it's about love and kindness and acceptance. So as Buddhists, we are called to reduce suffering, not to increase it. This means creating space where people of all gender identities and sexual orientations can feel safe, respected, and loved. In a world where transgender and queer individuals often face discrimination and exclusion, it is our responsibility as a Buddhist to be beacon of compassion and to stand against such prejudice. So in some Buddhist community today, transgender and queer people are still marginalized or excluded. I can share some of experience which I had when I'm at Sri Lanka. Even in France, some Buddhist temple is not open because I came out and I have a partner, and I'm talking about Buddhism and queer connectivity. So they are not accepting me and I'm not welcoming. I feel that when they talk with me, but it's totally fine because I know they are not practicing Buddhism. However, when we look closely at the Buddha's teaching, practically the Vinaya Pitaka, it is clear that the Buddha himself allowed for the acceptance of gender, diverse individuals within the monastic community. The Buddha did not turn people away because of their gender. Rather, he welcomed those who were committed to the spiritual path, regardless of the identity. The Buddha's teaching of Anatta and the Metta urge us to move beyond rigid concept of identity and to practice universal love and kindness toward all beings. If we are to truly follow the Buddha's path, our communities must reflect this inclusivity. And we must create space where all people, including transgender and queer individuals, are welcome and supported in their spiritual practice. In conclusion, the Buddha's teaching often asks a path of compassion, inclusivity, and love. The Vinaya Pitaka shows that the Buddha was willing to adapt the make space for gender diversity within the monastic community. And the story of Sorya reminds us that gender identity is fluid and that everyone has that potential to walk the path of Dhamma. As we continue to explore and expand our understanding of gender and identity in Buddhism, let's remember the power of metta, love and kindness for all beings. Let us build Buddhist communities that are inclusive, compassionate, and free from discrimination, where everyone can find peace and liberation. Thank you very much, and Sabbe Satta Sukhito Bhavantu. Over to you, Jampa.
Thank you.